Good morning and welcome to the November 4th, 2021 MAPS for Citizens Advisory Board meeting. I'm glad to call the meeting to order and so glad that we're all here together. I think this is the first time in a little while that we've had a 100% attendance of the board, so glad that you were all able to be here and appreciate your time. So we'll move to agenda item number 2, which is the approval of the minutes for the October 7th, 2021 MAPS Citizens Advisory Board meeting. Are there any comments? Or if not, I take a motion and a second to approve. Please cast your vote. Minutes. Okay.
It's not popping up.
Cue up the
Yep.
Jeopardy music.
Yeah, there we go. All righty.
Technology. It's fine.
It's great when it works.
Yeah.
All right, the motion passes. Thank you so much. Moving on to item number 3, the MAPS for Revenue and Expenditure Report. Mr. Todd?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You have in your packet the Revenue and Expenditure Report for the period ending September 30th, 2021. Briefly on the revenue side, for the month, $11,213,655. I believe that is another record collections month that we've had. And then for a total of $158,381,974, and that puts us just 1.1% below our projections. And if you recall, at the first of the year, we were about 7.5, 7.8, somewhere in there. So we're making good progress on that. Then on the expenditure side for the month, $29,000 for total expenditures of $1,088,000. I'll try to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions of Mr. Todd? I'm just so excited and holiday shopping hadn't even started. So I'll take a motion in a second to receive the report. All those, or please cast your vote. Great, motion passes. Thank you. So now moving on to item 4, which is the items for individual consideration. The first thing that we have is approval of the MAPS for Citizens Advisory Board 2022 meeting schedule.
So this is a requirement that we have annually for our regularly scheduled meetings. They have to be approved and filed, so it's a routine housekeeping item.
Okay. Motion second. Please vote. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. So the next item is a recommended resolution removing the Freedom Center renovation project from the MAPS 4 program, allocating $2 million that was intended for the Freedom Center funding to go to the Clara Looper Civil Rights Center, and amending the MAPS 4 implementation plan accordingly.
So this item is, as it says, to remove the Freedom Center piece of the civil rights projects out of the program. This comes actually from a request from board members from the Freedom Center. There's questions about land ownership and spending city money, but what really comes down to is they've been able to raise private funds. They've done a great job of raising the funds they need, and would really like to put this money more towards the Clara Looper Center. There's members of the Freedom Center board here today if you have any questions, but like I said, this comes from them at their request.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Christina, did you want to address the board, or you don't have to, but if you would like to.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone. Again, we've been having this discussion on an ongoing basis. Mr. Todd and his office have been really gracious to help us. We had a wonderful meeting last week here in City Hall and are just really excited about what the board has been able to accomplish in terms of raising private funds. And the intention really was always for the organization that Mrs. Looper established in 1965 to remain the owner of that building. And so our understanding, of course, is that in order for the project to be a part of MAPS 4, there was acquisition involved such that the Public Works Department could manage all of the work. And so, again, it was really always the intention of the Board of Directors that ownership remains with Freedom Center Incorporated, and so they have gone out and done private fundraising to ensure that we are able to make that work happen. We're also excited to be able to move forward with that more quickly and just kind of keep the momentum of things going with these private funds. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
So any questions for Christina or, yes?
Christina, just one question. I'm excited for you and congratulations
Thank
on
you.
achieving that goal. Just wanted to make sure you've secured the funds as opposed to just having a pledge or hoping they would be
We actually
out there.
have $500,000 on hand in order to begin moving forward with the project.
Okay, great, thank you.
Other questions? Comments?
This may be more for David. What will the $2 million go for?
Well, the way that this item is worded, it will go back, it's all bundled into the Civil Rights Project, so it will essentially go back to the Clara Looper Center. So there's 16.
We don't have a specific project for it in mind.
Well, it will be the Clara Looper
Right.
Museum. So the resolution says that there's $16 million for these two things.
Right.
And during our review with the operators, we came up with that budget of $2 million for the Freedom Center. Now it will just go back to where it was.
Very good, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. And so excited and happy that you all have been so successful and are able to move forward with the Freedom Center project.
Thank you very much, and
really
thank you for all of
exciting.
your help as well.
You bet. So with that, we will take a motion in second. Okay,
We're having some technical
No.
issues.
it's frozen, so do you want to do a
Yeah,
verbal
just do it
vote?
the old-fashioned way.
Okay,
So just
you
take,
want to call?
no, just take. a
Dr.
motion.
Bruner wants.
Okay,
Second.
okay, so we
I
have a
didn't,
motion
sorry,
and
I
a
didn't know I
second.
was on.
Okay,
I don't even need that. Loud without.
Can
okay,
you do a roll call?
yeah.
Yeah,
Please
roll
do.
call, please.
Harry Black. Ally Shin.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are.
Sorry, Shay. Mr. Grenell.
Oh, no, we're not.
Ms. Munez. Ms. Bruner. Gosh. Mr. Nealon. Ms. Martinez. Brooks. Mr. Summers.
Yes, please.
And Madam Chair,
Aye.
unanimously. It's still
Okay.
frozen, I'm sorry.
Well, thank you for your help. So motion passes. Great. So moving on to the next item C, which is recommend approval of the request for proposals for the MAPS 4 Innovation Hall Operator Partner.
Right, so this is the first of many of these RFPs you're going to see, and we went over that a little bit last month. Jason Cotton from ADG is here, and we're going to go over a little bit more of how this whole process works, and then he's going to talk about the first RFP. I hope to have several next month. So,
Okay, Jason,
Thanks,
thank you.
David. Good morning, Madam Chair, board members. Great to see everybody this morning. Feels a little bit weird saying happy holidays, but I think the next time we get together, we'll be on the other side of Thanksgiving. So I hope you guys and your families have a great holiday. So thank you for giving us time to come forward this morning and talk to you guys a little bit about the Innovation Hall RFP. So I'm going to start this morning, just like I usually do, with just kind of revisiting the things that have been going on since the last time that we got together. So there has been a lot of activity as it relates to A&E selection. We have several advertisements that went out. We've received letters of interest on several projects already, so we've listed those specifically here. So the first phase of bus stop improvements, the first phase of beautification work, obviously the soccer complex, Cameron Park and South Lake Park. We've received letters of interest on those projects, as well as the downtown arena work. And so the City of Oklahoma City Public Works, David's staff, they're in the process of reviewing those letters of interest. So that will take some time, but once they get through that, they'll get a selection committee together and go through the interview process. So that is obviously been going on since the last time that we got together. We also are waiting on a letter of interest for the first phase of neighborhood connectivity work. I think that's due today, actually. And so once we receive those, obviously that'll be folded into everything else that's going on. So it takes a lot of work administratively to get all that accomplished, and so that's been consuming a lot of time. But rest assured, even though we do not have anything to bring you on those specific activities, things are moving ahead as planned. So the other thing that's been going on since the last time that we met, we've been spending a lot of time on the operator requests for proposals, or RFPs. And so we have one for you here today, but obviously there's a lot. If you were to go back and look at the implementation plan, there were several projects, and I think we talked about this a little bit, but there are several projects. You know, operator selection and agreement is one of the first orders of business on a lot of the projects. And so there are a lot of these RFPs. We have only brought one for you here this morning to review and consider, but the other ones are in process, and you can see the list of the ones that we've been working on specifically. So the other thing I'm excited about this morning is I don't have to give this whole presentation. I've got someone else here with me this morning that's going to pick up the baton and take it forward. You know, I have a great team back at our office that supports me every day, and AJ Kirkpatrick is certainly a part of that team, an important part. AJ's been really instrumental in getting these RFPs assembled, and so I've invited him up here this morning to walk you through the RFP that is up for consideration today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to AJ.
Jason, just take it easy back there. Put your feet up, please. So as you said, AJ Kirkpatrick, I'm also at ADG, part of the MAPS 4 team here. He showed you 7 operator RFPs that are underway that will be coming to you over the next few months. And we wanted to give you a little bit of a general overview again about those operator RFPs. And then also, where applicable, kind of drill down specific to the one that is your agenda item today. So go ahead to let's see, I have the controller, don't I? Okay. So I think one of the first questions we should ask is, why are we doing these operator RFPs? And it's really about making sure that we're selecting good partners. As David made a great point in one of our meetings last week, this has been one of the successful lessons of MAPS throughout its history. The city does a great job of building the facilities, and in many cases, the city then works with a community partner to actually manage those facilities. And it's about finding the right expertise and the right operational model for these. The city doesn't always, the city can't do it all. They don't always have the capacity to do these things, but it's also about making sure that there are people that are closer to some of these issues that can be working these facilities day to day. So as part of that, you're also expanding community partnerships. You're helping those community agencies also grow their capacity through these opportunities. The RFPs in particular are very helpful as you look through them and you get through some of the additional requirements. We start to get really down into the weeds on some of the things that we're asking of them. In some ways, that is really helping them have to start answering some questions about what it's going to take for them to run these. And then lastly, through this process, we'll start to identify some of the key issues that will need to come up for consideration in the later operating agreement. So you might remember this visual from last time. We thought it was helpful to go back and reinsert ourselves in this visual. So we're looking at that gray bar, the operator selection agreement. Usually it would come before, sometimes overlap with pre-design on some of these projects. Definitely before design, as we say in all the documents, we want to make sure that these partners are at the table in these design conversations so that we're getting their expertise. And then lastly, in that construction phase. So if we drill down into that gray bar a little bit more, these were some of the key moments that we want to make sure on your radar screen about formal actions moving forward. So we're at the very end of that advertisement bar and that approval of RFP prior to release. At that point, we'll move into selection process. We'll start to get a selection committee involved. They will eventually come with a recommendation on who they would like to pick from that process once it's been turned in and we've potentially done the interviews. And then that approval would actually come back to this committee and as well as City Council for their approval on the final recommendation. And from there, you would move into the agreement development, either the approval of a binding terms sheet or more traditionally, we have called those MOUs, Memorandums of Understanding. And that MOU or binding terms agreement helps set the tone of the relationship between the city and that partner through the rest of the design and construction process and before a final operating agreement can be put in place, which is that last approval of final agreement there. So if we can drill down into the document itself for, oh, I'm sorry, there's one more slide. As I mentioned, the consideration of the RFP would go to a subcommittee, advisory board, and city council. Each would have an ability to weigh in on the RFP before advertisement and then also later on the selection of the operator. So now that once we do this, we take it to City Council, and once City Council approves it, we'll be able to finally release it to the public and to the potential operators to submit on. So let me drill down into the actual document, and I'm going to walk you through the individual sections of that document. First, we start with the general requirements. So we have a general description of the process of MAPS 4, also a brief description, if possible, of the project itself. And anything we can tell them on the history of the project. Where we have the ability to speak very definitively, we'll talk to them about the anticipated facility scope and program. And many of these you'll see that we do not necessarily call those out because we feel like those things are still up for discussion. Specific to the Innovation Hall, then let me talk about some of the things that you'll see in this first section specific to this project. The development partner has been selected for this, so the city is going to be working with a development partner as part of this. They have, if you've been reading the paper, they have announced some plans for a larger master plan for this area. And the Innovation Hall is really viewed as the key centerpiece of that full development. Per the resolution, they must show evidence of matching funds up to $10 million from non-MAP sources. Construction cannot begin until the operating agreement that we're talking about today is in place. And the resolution does talk about the need for measurable benchmarks for this project. This was something that was very important to council during their deliberation about some of these projects, and this is one that it is called out for. So from there, jumping back to the more general overview, there is a submittal requirements section. So the next 3 slides, I'm going to walk you through each of the subsections of that. These are generally the same across all the RFPs. You will notice some small differences from here. We'll change some words. Sometimes a question won't be applicable to this particular project, but it would be to another. So first, is a qualification and background section. So there's an opportunity for the respondents to talk about their organizational history, the key staff that they have, and also to show us an org chart. So we're really starting to learn about them as an organization, their experience in the subject matter, any past litigation or terminated grants or agreements, so you have some understanding of the liability you may be entering into. And lastly, their understanding of our project. And the next section is financial capacity, so we'll ask them to share the past 2 years of audited financials. Then in a program services and schedule section, we ask them to talk about their overall approach to our project, their planned activities from a daily, weekly, annual standpoint, so you start to get a sense of how that facility will change throughout the course of a week, throughout the course of a year. Their planned community partnerships, and many of these, the council was very clear that they wanted these projects to catalyze other partnerships with the community, so we want them to talk about other community groups that they may be bringing in. Also, in some of these facilities, there's going to be an expectation that the community will be able to use the facility. Maybe they'll be able to rent it out. And so we want them to talk about how that process will work. And lastly, we asked them to talk a little bit about their transit needs. The city already has a very robust transit system. Some of these facilities may have impacts on that transit system. In some cases, they may have plans for their own private transit services. So we want them to kind of start to talk about those things. The fourth section is staffing and management. So specific to our project, we want them to share who are the staff that you have just told us, who of those are going to actually work on our project? Are you planning on hiring additional staff to work on our project? Are they qualified? Is that staff qualified? Well, how are they qualified? Also, more generally, how do you train your staff? And can you show us more about your employment practices? In some cases, we're asking for an employee handbook. Also, if they already know any partners or subcontractors that they know are going to be very key to the success of that, we want to make sure that they're starting to get those out on the table. In a business plan section, we ask them to do a projected annual budget for the first 5 years of operation. And where applicable, not every project is this case, but where they have been given the ability to go to the MAPS 4 Trust to request operating maintenance capital funds, we expect in that first 5-year pro forma to show the amount of money that they're going to be requesting from the MAPS 4 Trust. Communication and marketing, we want them to talk about their planned Patreon and community outreach, how they're going to let the community know they exist and this facility exists. And then also, how would they respond to any client issues that may arise once they're operating the facility? And then this is the last slide. There is a section on quality assurance, risk management, insurance. So the organization's history in terms of risk management, their general approach to risk management, any tools that they currently use or plan to use for quality assessment to make sure that they're doing a good job day to day, week to week. Also, emergency preparedness. How would they deal with certain types of emergencies? And their ability to meet the city's insurance requirements are all in this section. And then lastly, this is one that we added specific to this project. We are going to ask them to propose their own measurable benchmarks. And we don't necessarily have to take them exactly as proposed, but this is their opportunity to tell us how they think it would be fair to be measured in any consideration of their operating agreement in the future, in any future renewals of that. So specific to, so then the next section is the proposal evaluation criteria. 1 second. This is going to be fairly consistent across all the RFPs that you see. I think so far in the ones that we started, only one may differ a little bit. We're still debating that. But usually we want to try to keep these very consistent for the selection committees. They will use, in most cases, the exact same categories that I just walked you through in the previous section. So specific to our Innovation Hall project today, there is an expectation that this project would generate additional community partnerships. There's a thought that this really is going to be the hub of the Innovation Hall, and that this really is almost the student union of that project, so that it's a place where everybody in that campus is coming to interact. So there is, I think, a high expectation of that for this. But even more specifically, there is, I think, some discussion about making sure that this entity, this facility, is interacting well with the community immediately surrounding it. And so we did ask them for specific examples of past success in working with neighborhoods like the neighborhood that is around the Innovation Hall. In the business plan, they must identify the anticipated funds for MAPS 4 Trust. As I mentioned before, this is one where we do expect them to do that. And this is also one where the measurable benchmarks will be important. So looking ahead, on the Innovation Hall operator RFP in November, assuming that we approve today, this would go on to City Council for their approval, and then we'd be able to release the RFP pretty quickly after that. In December, around the mid-month of December, we would be doing interviews if needed. And then in January, in early January, so it'd be your next advisory board, not your next, your January advisory board meeting, we would have the ability to weigh in on the recommended operator that comes through that process. So those, that next bullet, the next operators that are, the operator RFPs that are expected, homelessness, HB Foster Center, youth centers, and multipurpose stadium, we think are all going to be coming to you very quickly. And then lastly, we would expect to see additional activity on some of the A&E projects that Jason mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. So with that.
Okay, any questions of AJ? Thank you for that presentation and walking us through that.
Thank you.
No questions? Thank you so much.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So on the timeline, back to the process of how we're putting out the RFP, I thought there was a subcommittee section, but
AJ, or Jason, do you want to address that?
I'll take this. If they don't like my answer, you can come up and give it a shot. So,
I thought you were
yes,
supposed to be putting your feet up.
So yes, ma'am. So ideally, we would like subcommittees involved in these processes, but I think that, you know, we talked a lot during development of the implementation plan in terms of trying to be aggressive with the projects. We think this one in particular is one it's important that we get moving forward on sooner rather than later. And so we've basically put this process together hoping that the subcommittee will be in place, but if it's not, we fully anticipate that we could bring their recommendation forward to the board for the board's consideration.
And if you, there was, one of the slides that went through this section, it did specifically state subcommittee involvement. So, okay, other questions? Okay, so.
Is it up and running, Lisa?
Okay, good. All right, so in your packet, we received the recommended proposal for the MAPS 4 Innovation Hall Operator Partner. So if there's no questions, we'll take a motion in a second. Mine isn't coming up for a vote. Oh, whoops, sorry. Operator error. There we go. Thank you.
You're welcome. I do it all the time.
Okay. Is it? We're good. Okay, the motion passes. Fantastic. We are making progress, my friends. All right, so now moving on to item number 5. Any discussion items? Mr. Todd? Okay, Harry?
Yes, and I'm trying to turn down the volume even as I speak. How about if I do it? I can.
Like this,
Okay.
then everybody here, yes, 3 blocks away.
People at TV can't hear you.
Yes.
Oh, they can't? Are the people at TV there? Okay, well, they don't need to.
My mother's watching. Mine too.
I seem to recall that at our last meeting, there was a request to get Jason's PowerPoint so that new people like me could refer back to that for this whole process of
Right. Yes.
unpacking the letters and the requests and stuff, but I did not receive that.
We forgot that, and I'll make sure you get that today.
Okay, well, I don't need it today, but tomorrow would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the reminder.
I have a question. Isn't there like a innovation district like org already? Wouldn't that be given that they would be the operators of the innovation district hall?
So the way that we're approaching this, in staying true to the resolution, if the resolution does not specifically state an operator, like for the Family Justice Center, it specifically said Palomar.
Yeah.
For the Freedom Center, it specifically referenced that organization, then we're not doing the RFP. Otherwise, we are going through the RFP process, even if there's a most likely operator, but we're staying true to the resolution, and that, I mean, that's our job, is to just make sure that we have as open a process and we follow the resolution the way it was written.
Yeah, that was just a question.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Any other questions? Okay. So item 6, comments by board, staff, or citizens. Do we have any citizens signed up today? Okay.
We do have hard copies for you today of the implementation plan. So I did bring those. So Katie Gustafson's got those, and after the meeting, we can just hand those out to you. Be sure you get yours before you leave.
Okay. Any other comments by the board? Okay. All right, if there's none, we'll move to item number 7, which is adjournment. And we are adjourned. Happy holidays, as Jason pointed out, and we'll see you in December. I know, thank you.